Okay, this is now the visual tarot part 8, and there's one word for this episode, and the word is sitting, because a little while ago we looked at the Eight of Pentacles, and I've got the notes here, and it says something about the fellow sitting to work and working patiently in repetition. But I was thinking later about the Eight of Pentacles, he's sitting there, but then I thought, if we look at the High Priestess, there she is, she's sitting as well. So what's the difference between the Eight of Pentacles and the High Priestess? They're both sitting, but what's going on is very different. And then I thought I'd add a third one, and I thought, where is it? There's the King of Cups. He's sitting as well. So we've got three people. What they have in common is they're all seated. But if we, instead of trying to come up with other words to describe the King of Cups or the High Priestess or the Eight of Pentacles, instead of going sort of sideways and adding more meanings, so to speak, we take one meaning, one idea, and go deep with it, or delve into it and see what more we can do with it. So that's what I'm thinking of doing today. So let me just find if I can go back to that. There's the Eight of Coins. Okay. So if we look at the picture, we've got the fellow sitting, and I've got a few notes here. So I've got here that he's busy. So the Eight of Pentacles is sitting, yes, but he's active. He's busy. He's doing things. He's physically active, because he's actually chiseling away onto the coin and he's doing something. There's repetition as well, but he's physically active and he's busy. And then the third line I've got down here is remember the question and connect them. So let's say somebody wants to know about getting a job, getting a new job, and the Eight of Pentacles comes up. The suggestion can be that the person, they don't look around in different places, but they stay where they are. And that can mean that they start with what they're already good at, or the skills that they've already developed, or they're in the process of developing. So let's say you've gone to school and you've got a degree in, or some kind of qualification in graphic design. Because you're sitting, it can be that instead of looking to do something in translation work, let's say, or some other area that you haven't trained for, or joining the police force, or joining the army, what you do is you stay within the area that you've already been exploring or where you've been developing. But you don't just sit there and wait for the job to come to you, because the person in the Eight of Pentacles is physically active. So you reach out, you make connections with people. You maybe work on your resume, and you send out resumes, and you do networking. And so there are certain kinds of activity that go along with the Eight of Pentacles. Even though the person's sitting, they're not moving long distances. It's not the Eight of Cups where the person's walking away. So we're sort of located in a particular area, or in a particular place, or in a particular kind of work. And but yet we don't sit and wait for the job to come to us. We do what's appropriate given the card and given the question. Whereas if the question were, how am I going to meet somebody and get married? It's the same idea. You don't travel to another part of the world and hope to meet somebody on vacation. You stay where you are, but you begin to reach out, and maybe you go to a different kind of social event, a social gathering, or you send out invitations to people to come and visit you, or you make phone calls. So there are certain types of activity that would go along with the Eight of Pentacles. Whereas if we look at the High Priestess, she's sitting, but she's not physically active. She's got the book or the scroll thing on her lap, but she's more, we might say, contemplative. What did I write down here? Indoors, isolated, private, and serious. So if the question is, I mean, if you look at the picture, she's indoors, which may or may not be important. But in order to meet her or to get to her, think about what you would have to go through if you were going to meet her. Maybe there's a doorman, or maybe you've got to show credentials. You've got to prove that you have a reason to see her, or there are checks before you can actually meet her. I've got here that she's isolated and private as well. And those can be important factors, again, depending on what the question is. And she's serious. I mean, she looks like she's serious, so you don't show up with a glass of beer in your hand. Maybe you have to approach her respectfully and seriously, and maybe well-dressed would be appropriate as well. So let's say the question is how to get a promotion, and the high priestess could represent a kind of person that you need to connect with, who's going to help you get the job, or whose advice is going to be useful for you in going for the job. Or it can mean as well that you're meant to be like the high priestess. So take yourself seriously. Take seriously the ideas or the presentation you're going to make to the people who are doing the interview. And I wrote down indoors because if you look at the King of Cups, if I can find it here, he's out of doors. I mean, he's sitting as well, but he's outdoors. And so what's the difference between somebody sitting in a covered enclosure in possibly an older building, and somebody who is out of doors? It can mean that the King of Cups is more approachable or more accessible than the High Priestess. So let's say we've got the High Priestess in the 8th position in a Celtic cross spread, the influence of other people. So with the High Priestess in the 8th position of a Celtic cross, the influence of other people would be maybe difficult to get or difficult to gauge, or they're going to be people that you can't easily get in touch with, or who are going to suggest that you take it slowly and that you don't be available for everyone and anyone. So I'm thinking as well, it might be people in productivity videos and seminars talk about the effects of being interrupted. So that if you're working at something and you get an interruption, it can take you like 25 minutes to get back to where you were before you were interrupted. So interruptions are a terrible waste of time. So people suggest that you take the phone off the hook, or don't answer the phone, or make it clear to other people that you're not to be disturbed for a while, and then you're going to get a lot more work done. And that can be the kind of advice or the kind of suggestion that you get from the High Priestess in the 8th position in a Celtic cross. Whereas if the King of Cups is the 8th position, then the king, he looks like he's sitting there ready to give advice, or ready to be, I've got here, ready to be consulted. So he's available. But he's not that difficult to get in touch with. And maybe that's a difference between sitting outdoors and sitting indoors, with the High Priestess is indoors. So she's more remote and more difficult to get in touch with. Whereas somebody who's represented by the King of Cups, for instance, you can see them without too much difficulty. Okay, I'm going to keep this short today. So that was it about sitting in different circumstances and what we can expect from different types of people in these different circumstances. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next. Okay, bye-bye.